Welcome to City Radio. My name is Molly Hoops. I'm here with my co-host Timothy Mercer, and we're at RadioOnFire Studios on 25th Street in Baltimore City. Today we have three guests: Christian M. Hanley, a Democratic strategist; Bonnie Raven Lane, Green Party candidate, longtime activist and advocate; and Christina Johnson, author of a book, Faith That Conquers, who will join us after the break. Let's get started with the show. Christian, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Christian Hanley is a family man, a former practicing attorney, a speechwriter, a campaign manager. He happens to be non-native to Baltimore. He works for himself. To quote the bio he sent us, he positions organizations, officials, and candidates for communication success. His work also includes planning and implementing communication strategies. Christian, how'd you like my intro? Was it terrible?
It was not. It sounded like you read straight from LinkedIn, so that works. With the little interjection there about not being a native, so thank you for clearing that up.
What does it mean to be a communications strategist? What does your work entail? Are you glad not to be a practicing attorney, or is it kind of the same?
So there's some overlap. Certainly in the strategizing and in the public speaking, there's overlap. So there are some attorneys that are transactional, right? They do things like real estate deals and things like that. They kind of move paper around. And then there are trial attorneys. And then on the communications, or the political side, excuse me, you have people who are more communications and who are more field people. They work with volunteers. They work with people who are knocking on doors, right? So the overlap I see is kind of between the attorneys who talk for a living and the communication side of politics, right? That's sort of the overlap there. And no, I don't miss practicing, no.
So you love writing then?
What's that?
You love writing?
Yeah, I love speech writing. I love writing in general. It doesn't matter if it's speeches, op-eds, policy pieces, it doesn't matter. It's one of my favorite things to do, yeah.
I want to ask you about a recent campaign you worked on, the first woman Muslim campaign in Baltimore County to run for office.
Yeah.
What was that like? How'd that go? Where are you at with elections?
Yeah, it went well. I came in December of 2017. Sort of out of the blue. I found her campaign just kind of browsing the internet, and I connected with Aisha because she was looking for a communications person, Aisha Khan, who ran in District 44B. And that was a wonderful experience for me as a communications person, because it wasn't just about developing her message and getting the word out there. It was also helping someone who was not native to the United States, someone for whom English was not her first language, and helping her kind of translate her thoughts and feelings and her platform into something that would resonate with the voters of her own adoptive district. And in the end, she didn't win the legislative seat, but she did get a seat on the Democratic State Central Committee, so it's pretty rewarding.
Very good.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
With us again, we have Bonnie Raven. Can I call you Raven?
You sure can. People call me Raven, okay. Yes. That is my Chippewa Indian name, actually.
Awesome. Okay, good. I thought you made it up. It had to do with the mascot of,
no,
of our
that's actually my name.
Team. All right. That's good.
But I love the Ravens, but I'm also standing with Colin. Anyways.
All right. As long as you're not standing with Ray Lewis, that's cool. I don't mind, though. What am I? It's non-partisan. You're running for delegate in the 43rd district.
Yes, right here where we are.
You want to talk about what your campaign looks like and where you might see a need for communication strategist, or
hey, if only I could afford to hire him. I'm an activist, really. Politics, I was asked to run this time. I'm formerly homeless, so I'm focused on housing, and I'm focused on food insecurity and ending hunger. And I'm focusing on not just $15 an hour minimum wage, but something that would help people meet their basic needs all the time and they wouldn't have to worry about it. And it's called Universal Basic Income Guarantee. And actually Martin Luther King called for this way back when, and it might have been one of the things that got him killed. So basically a Universal Basic Income Guarantee means everybody, no matter what, would get a basic income that would meet their basic needs. So, and it would also probably help with a lot of the violence and other things going on in Baltimore, because if you don't have to struggle to put food on the table and put a roof on your head, you might not, need to be on the corner hustling so hard.
Bonnie, how long have you been a member of the Green Party?
Several years. I've actually been the former Baltimore chair and the Maryland chair. I can't remember how many years, but yeah.
That's commendable. That's commendable. Let me ask you a question. You didn't have to run in the primary, did you?
No, we're not allowed in the primaries. There's actually a law in the Maryland state constitution that has to get overturned in order for parties other than the Democrats and Republicans to run in the primaries. We typically run our own primaries. If I would have had a challenger, we would have had one, but I was unopposed. So,
how long does a campaign look like? Like, what kind of planning really goes into running? For most people, I know everybody has a different experience coming in, deciding to run, figuring that out. What is the difference between what a winning candidate's campaign looks like? Usually, maybe overall in general, Christian.
It really depends on the office sought and the candidate. So, here in Maryland, the primaries are early, and in Baltimore City in particular, that means that the campaigns, or the election, is effectively early, right? Because it's basically a one-party town. There's no large opposition party, and so...
Well, we're working on it.
Well, yes. But for right now, essentially, if you're a Democratic candidate and you win in June, then you can go home. You're done. So in terms of how long a campaign goes on, we're sort of entering a new phase now with social media. We've already entered it, I should say, where people are starting earlier and earlier to put feelers out there and to kind of market themselves online. But it really depends on the individual, how deep their roots are, how big their network is, and also the office sought. Running for something down ballot is not the same as running for U.S. Senate, obviously. So,
are you optimistic?
I am a bit optimistic right now. One of my opponents, I want to talk a little bit about Delegate Kurt Anderson. And I'm encouraging him to do the right thing and decline the nomination and get out of the race unless the commission clears his name. So he's been accused of sexual harassment charges and some pretty serious allegations. And I believe these women, and I think it's crazy that, we're paying a potential sexual predator with our tax dollars. And I think it's very serious. As a survivor, it really upsets me.
I can understand that. That's not a bad perspective for yourself to take, and that's a reasonable perspective for you to take, towards that end. Even if you're innocent until proven guilty, the bottom line is the allegations are there, and towards that end, and it's reasonable for anyone who want to take that perspective to take it. But I didn't know that Kurt was the Democratic incumbent in this particular district.
He's one of two incumbents. Well, there are three incumbents. Mary Washington has gone on to the Senate race, and I love Mary, so congrats, Mary.
Okay.
And Maggie McIntosh is still an incumbent, and then we have a newcomer named Regina Boyce on the ballot. So it's the three Democrats and me in our race right now. And then Kurt has until August 28th to accept or decline the nomination. And then if he declines it or resigns, then the Central Committee gets to decide who goes into our race.
So you still be our dog out, even if he chooses not to run?
I'm still on the ballot.
You're still on the ballot, but they will put in another Democrat, the Central Committee, to take his
and then it's a whole new race, yes.
Whole new race.
Exciting.
So in actuality, by him refusing to run as a result of the allegations, your situation don't actually change.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if he stays on the ballot or not.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm with you, though. I got you. I'm with you.
How much should a candidate, or should somebody who's running their race, worry about the other candidate, or how do you think about your competitor in a race? How do you prep your...
Right. So, I mean, in Baltimore City, it really ends up being an intra-party sort of a competition, right, where it's Democrat versus Democrat, and typically that's why I say you wrap up with the primary, because there is a very low likelihood of someone from outside the party winning come November. So in this city, that's kind of a unique, or at least a rare dynamic. Of course, I'm not from here originally. I don't have deep roots here at all. I've been moving around. But so in other places, though, you'd look at sort of two stages, right? You have your primary opponent who you have to size up, and then general election. But you typically wouldn't worry about the latter as much until you figure out whether or not you've won in the primary. But same things I talked about before, sort of the size of one's network, depth of their pockets, things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A little bit more about the Green Party. Do you guys win races ever?
We do. We have won some races here and there. We're running 25 candidates across the state of Maryland right now, including Ian Schlockman and Andy Chambers are running for governor and lieutenant governor, and I don't even know how many delegate races we have going on right now. So we might break through this year.
Sorry, Tim, go ahead, my friend.
Do we have any Green Party delegates in Annapolis at the present time?
No, we don't.
What does the Green Party stand for? How can you explain it to a layman who might want the minimum wage, increased?
We're for that. We're a party of basically a lot of activists and environmentalists, and we have 10 key values that we kind of go by, and we believe in grassroots and participatory democracy, and we're nonviolent and like to help the environment. But we also show up when people are getting kicked out of their tents and their houses, or when the cops are killing people. We're on the front lines too. We don't just show up at election time.
Because I guess most people will associate the Green Party with mostly environmental and kind of initiatives along the lines of
We've actually had some
air and this, that, and other.
And we believe in that. We've actually had some interesting people join the Green Party recently. Doc Cheatham, the former head of the NAACP, is now Green, and we're getting a lot more people of color joining the membership, and which I think is great, because when I got into it, it was a bunch of old white guys, and I was like, this doesn't look like Baltimore, and I was set out to fix it, and we've been, working on that.
Do the Green Party meet that often in the city, Baltimore City?
We meet monthly. Our next meeting is coming up on the 12th.
Okay. That's good. So I'm going to ask you a question. You got the opportunity now to talk with those residents of the 43rd Legislative District. I want you to elaborate briefly on what you want them to do and why you want them to come out and support you. Okay? This is your opportunity to say, I need you, come out and vote for me.
I want you to come out and support me because I'm actually a candidate who shows up and gets things done. I've been doing a barbecue for the homeless, which we'll talk about in a bit. For the past 7 years, we start with zero budget and feed 1,000 people. I want to make sure everybody in my district has food, clothing, and shelter, and you shouldn't have to work 2 to 3 jobs for a 1-bedroom apartment. And I also want to see equitable, non-racialized transit that actually works in this town, and that's why you should vote for me.
Hey, Ms. Bonnie, I hear you, and that makes sense. And I like what you said earlier in reference to the wage, because I believe the minimum wage now, federal minimum wage, is $7.25. And my campaign in the city, I supported $15, because I don't believe anyone should work a 40-hour work week and still be living in poverty. Yeah,
exactly.
If you work 40 hours, you're supposed to make a livable wage.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that used to not be a really radical progressive idea. I mean, 100 years ago, you would have had Republicans who would have been on the same page as you and I and all three of us here. But it just shows you how far off course, how far to the right we've gone as a political culture in the past 40 years. It's really, truly amazing that that's somehow a hardcore lefty position that you should be able to work and live in dignity if you work a full-time job. I mean, it's just, that used to be completely non-controversial and sort of the common sense proposition.
Why are you a Democrat, and what does it mean? What does it mean to be a Democrat for you? How do you see it for most of Baltimore City?
So again, I'm not a native Baltimorean, so I can't speak to that directly. But I can speak for myself, though, and I'm a Democrat because I do believe in the principles of fair pay for a fair day's work. I do believe that people have the right to live and work in dignity in this country, regardless of their identity, regardless of their background. And I see us right now at a point in this country, and really not even just in this moment of the Trump administration, but really for years now, we're living in a time where we are kind of on the defensive. Democrats, and really anybody else for that matter, against a right wing that has become alarming, that's become extremist. And people who clutch their pearls and cry out about how much of an aberration Trump is, to them I say he's the logical conclusion of decades of dog whistle racist politics. He's the culmination of a war on facts that has gone on since the dawn of Fox News and sort of an alternative right-wing media. So, you know, for me, being a Democrat means being the spearhead of a movement to stop this right-wing agenda that has really gone on since we kind of failed back in the late 70s, early 80s, and let Reagan come in and move this country almost irreversibly to the right for the past 40 years. Now it's our job to, you know, right the ship.
And Christian, you probably understand, like I do, that right now we're fighting uphill.
Yes.
When it comes to this second Supreme Court justice that Trump is appointing,
right.
When it comes to everything that Barack Obama introduced, him trying to turn back, including affordable health care. And when it comes to tariffs that he putting in China and the ones he wants to interact next month,
right.
We going backwards. When it comes to our perception amongst our allies, we're going back. I've seen us take steps back since the last 2 months, last month, since June, the election. I've seen us take steps back. When we go to a summit and we beat down Angela Merkel and the other 6 countries, and then we go and have a kissing contest with Putin, and we go and act as if we're going to make some leeway with North Korea, which is ludicrous. And then just last week he said, I'll talk with Iran, no pre-existing conditions necessary.
Right.
We have some problems.
Right. No, we do. And so I've lived and studied in Europe, and you know, one thing that was always talked about when I lived there was the importance of the post-World War II order that a much more liberal America really led the way in creating. So a system where you have NATO, where you have shared defense, where you have a European Union, where you have kind of a unified West that stood against authoritarianism. European leaders see our country now and think to themselves, well, wait a minute, you were the ones who, you know, invented everything from the 40-hour work week to the commuter rail to, you know, the modern era to you know, liberal democracy being the foundation, being kind of the most important shared value. The United States technologically and democratically created the post-World War II era, and now we're saying, well, you know, forget our values, forget all that we stood for. We're the ones who are getting, you know, in Trump's parlance, you know, screwed over, and nothing could be farther from the truth, and it makes no sense to any allies of ours. The only logical explanation is that our leader is, well, right, or that our leader has been compromised. Right.
I agree.
Right.
Because basically our European Union, the only time it had to be activated, but we needed our allies, was 9/11. And all of them came to our understanding and joined us in our endeavor in Afghanistan.
So I think, yeah, there you're talking about Article 5 of the NATO treaty, right, which is the shared self-defense, right? And that's crucial, right? That's crucial. It's critical. You know, the European Union, of course, is a different entity, but it's also one of our largest trading partners, especially when you talk about lateral trade, where you have trade between different developed economies of high-tech products, things like that. And you know, the European Union, what a lot of people forget, because we are decades out now from its creation, was
70 years, am I correct?
Thereabouts, yeah. Well, yes, but there are a couple of different regional trade organizations that came together to form what we now know as the EU. But one of the most important unions or predecessors to the union was between France and Germany after World War II. And their most important endeavor was to share natural resources, to share coal and steel. The thought being, if we are tied together, If we're holding hands, we can't fight. We can't punch each other. If we share our resources in one common market, we're unable to make war anymore. We have to solve things at a conference table, not on a battlefield. In human history, that was unprecedented. From the dawn of time until the 1950s, something like that had never happened before, at least not to that extent. And to tear down something like that is the most important event in the history of diplomacy, one of the most important events in the history of mankind and civilization, it's appalling to watch. I can't overstate that.
What is the Green Party perspective on a Republican president, Barney?
On Trump? Well, all right. Let's just say I'm speaking for what I think the Green Party perspective is. My perspective is he needs to go somewhere. I don't know what the word is. There even a word for it? Horrible. And he's committing crimes against humanity like every hour on the hour, and he just needs to be stopped by all means necessary.
I'm just wondering how people who are so deep in the community, like you are and have been for so long, can sort of make sense out of the world now, and how, really as a politician, what your allegiance is and how you wake up in the morning and set your priorities.
Well, I set my priorities because, it's out of necessity, and my priorities haven't changed since I became a politician. My priorities have been to, try to feed people and help them find housing and resources, and I'm still doing the same things I did. It's just, there's more of a need now because of everything getting cut and slashed, and, people are really, worried about their future, because everybody knows who Trump is. And people think homeless people don't vote. Homeless people vote. We've registered lots of homeless people to vote, and a lot of them ask stuff about politics, and they're very interested, in what's going on, and they talk about Trump too, and they can't stand him.
I can believe it. Yeah. I can believe it. Barney, I always have believed that observation and practice participation has the highest degree of truth, validity. And I'm going to tell you, when you mentioned earlier that you come from being homeless, but the problem now, you wasn't deterred. You said, I still must take a position in my community to address the problems that I didn't live and share, because I'm familiar with these problems intimately, And I think that is the best way to go in. But I kind of smile when I see you say, I'm a politician now. I said that to say this here. I know for a fact you are an advocate, because I know you plead the cause of others. And the bottom line is, my position is, I don't know whether it's best that you be the same activist that you are, the same advocate that you are, or a politician, because the bottom line, I know for a fact you make an excellent advocate,
Well, if I get elected, I'll have more resources to advocate with.
That's fair, that's fair, that's fair. So you're saying that basically right now, are you working right now, Barney?
I'm self-employed. I do websites and social media for people.
So you're working. Self-employment is the best kind of work.
And can I talk about my barbecue yet?
Yeah. So this is it's going to be the 7th annual barbecue for the homeless down on the St. Mary's Square. Is that correct?
Down at the Shot Tower.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we've been doing a barbecue for the homeless. This will be the 7th year. This year it's August 26th from 1 to 4. And this is the first year we've had it at it'll be at the Phoenix Shot Tower. And we usually have fed 1,000 homeless people at this event. So we fed about 6,000 people already. And we need all of your support and all your help. We need donations, we need volunteers. It takes a lot to feed 1,000 people. We start with no budget and make it work out every year. So if you want to donate or volunteer, you can contact me at 443-494-9569 or email fightinjustice247@gmail.com. You can find us on GoFundMe under the People's Barbecue 2018 or People's Homeless Barbecue 2018. On Raven Lane on Facebook, and at Be More Advocate on Instagram and Twitter. And we have a lot of people that make the barbecue happen every year. We have Shorty, famous Shorty's Bootleg Barbecue, and he also likes to protest politicians, back on the grill for the 7th year. And WLOI Loyola Radio always provides the entertainment. Last year we had Femi the Dry Fish, and people that have done artscape and stuff, the volunteer artists that volunteer their time to perform for the homeless. So it's a lot of fun too.
Sounds like a really great event. I used to work with Food Not Bombs, and we fed the homeless right there. I'm
working with Food Not Bombs right now.
I can't say that. I mean, is it a success? Yeah, of course it's a success if you feed somebody who's hungry, no doubt about it, every day, right? That's success.
Right.
Okay.
Till 4 o'clock. What time do it start, Barney?
It starts at 1 o'clock.
Starts at 1. And so we're talking about a 4-hour window. That's enough eating. You know, I'm going to ask you a question. I know you say you feed the homeless, right, and the hungry, but do you feed the greedy? Because I'm not.
Well, you can't tell who's homeless. Like, I have a dual degree in public relations and journalism and still wound up on the street, so there is no homeless ID card, so we're not going to be like, yo, you don't look homeless, you can't get a plate. No, we're not about that. Yes, everybody's welcome.
That's good. I go there because I don't mind volunteering also, and I know volunteers can get to eat, and I love to eat towards that end.
Who doesn't love to eat? I'm a chocolatarian, for the record.
Oh, yeah. Christian, a quick question for you, sir. What would be the prerequisites for someone who want to bring an individual of your talents and expertise on? What would be the prerequisite? What would you ask them going in to relate to whether or not you could service them?
Oh, sure. So really the first questions I have are, what does a candidate or a group, what do they stand for? There are some individuals who they have different standards than I do, and vice versa. But for me, I work with people who sort of are on the same page in terms of values. Like I said before, the reason why I'm a Democrat is because I see us as being, in this very serious fight right now for the future of our country and our democracy, and so I want to work with people who share those values. I hear you say that you have 2 degrees and you still ended up on the street. In a country with a $20 or so trillion economy, that doesn't even make any sense, right? That should not even happen. So talking to people who say, no, I want to make sure that everyone, has food on the table, to make sure everyone has a roof over their heads, that's what I'm fighting for, then we're on the same page. If someone says, hey, I like the way you sounded on that radio show I got you on, can you talk for me? I want to, loosen banking regulations and let, payday lenders, take people's money, then I'd say, yeah, you might need to hire someone else. So really it's about shared values at first, and then we can talk about how we can work out a budget and make it affordable and get on the same page in terms of working relationship. But really it starts with an issue of values, certainly.
Are you basically, so you don't have to compromise your ethics and morals?
Well, right. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see how you can have places, and I've yet to work in such places, but areas where the demographics lean more conservative, and so you have to kind of do a certain sort of math, right? Is a centrist Democrat going to be better than a crazy right-wing Republican who is going to curtail women's rights, and who is going to so at that point you kind of have to think, well, is that the lesser of two evils? Do I work with the centrists to save a population, to save people from these crazy right-wing policies? I think there's room for discussion there, but certainly in the work that I've done thus far in my life, it's really about making sure you're on the same page in terms of values.
Have you ever represented a Republican?
Oh, no. No.
You wouldn't consider it?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I knew you were going to ask that question.
I don't hate you for it, Chris.
No. I mean, look, here's the reality, and Republicans on TV shows love to play semantics with this fact, but populations change, demographics change, and events change people's party affiliations, right? So they love throwing out these out-of-context facts like, well, a lot of the biggest bigots in the 1960s were members of the Democratic Party. Of course, omitting the fact that from the mid-1960s on, with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, those people all changed their affiliation as black voters came into the Democratic Party, and it was a complete reversal, right? Yeah, if you were talking about a Republican who came along who for some reason had the politics of 1912 Teddy Roosevelt, one, I'd want to put them in a museum, but two, I might sit down for lunch with them and see what they have to say. But if you're asking if I'd work with a 2018 Republican, absolutely not. I don't even know how someone who claims to be calm and rational and reasonable and friendly like Hogan can sit there and remain in the same party where all the representatives in Congress and all the members of the Senate are falling in line with a would-be authoritarian like Donald Trump. It's inconceivable. How can someone with ethics do that?
How does he do it, and how do the Democrats support him?
I think, well, one thing I will say about Hogan is that I think that he has a really impressive communications team. He can really spin things. After the Ellicott City flooding, he can really spin things. After the Ellicott City flooding, he was out there on social media, within 24 hours talking about
with the puppy.
The rain tax again. not the puppy. Talking about, the so-called rain tax again. It's not about taxing the rain. It's about making sure that events like Ellicott City's flooding don't happen. But he's out there with, social media graphics that are shareable, that make it seem like this proposition brought on by the Democrats is totally insane and unreasonable. I did notice, though, that it was just a cheap communication stunt because I recognized the faces in those ads from other commercials because they were stock footage. So I got a kick out of that. It was stock videos and stock footage. But
what are we going to do? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
It seemed like an important question about people getting away with just lying to, and that's just what they do. How do you get away with that?
Well, I think that there's really not a ton that the press can do until the culture has yet another shift. I mean, everyone's talking about what the press should do. I mean, David Fahrenthold from the Washington Post broke every single scandalous story about Trump before the election, right? But people became so numb to it, they became so apathetic that the reporting didn't matter anymore. So the reporting coming from newspapers, from radio, from TV only have an impact if the population, if the voting population reacts to it. If they don't care, then it's just talk, right? So there needs to be another change in the culture. And unfortunately, unlike legislation or technology, cultural changes take a lot of work and a lot of time. And we're in a place right now where I think a lot of folks don't have the right priorities and are really kind of zoning out when it comes to responsibilities of citizenship. Democracy is not a spectator sport, and no journalist, no opposition party, no liberal firebrand all alone is going to save us.
I'm gonna tell you, Ma, you answered perfectly the question. I like that question that you say. How did he get in? How did he win in the Democratic state, right? And the reason he won in a Democratic state is because Maryland is a redneck state and a southern state. So all that goes together. We're a southern state and we got a lot of rednecks. And towards that end, we vote in Republicans.
That's not why.
I think he promised the red line and he canceled his promise.
Same reason O'Malley won.
O'Malley
Too many people ran. The vote got split up, and he was able to slide in because enough Democrats didn't stand aside and said, this is the better candidate, I'm going to support him. Everybody wanted to be the man. And then it was too many people running, and he just slid in.
That's what I'm saying to you, though. But that, in the general, he was running 1 against 1.
Doesn't hurt to have friends with the Koch brothers with lots of money.
He was running. To the get
I said it doesn't hurt to be friends with the Koch brothers who have more money than the man in the moon, too.
Who just pulled back on that money with certain Republicans this past week. They said they had put their money into a Democrat party, into a Democratic candidate now. But you know what the prerequisite is, right? He or she got to be a Republican bootlicker, even if they say they are a Democrat.
True.
I'm telling you, they aren't gonna support no real left winger.
So he just opened a campaign office on North Avenue, so he's finally invested in Baltimore.
Who, Hogan?
Hogan, yes.
That's good.
But he doesn't embrace Trump. If he embraced Trump here, he would lose.
Right.
Well, I was going to make that point because he haven't invited him to the state. He haven't invited him to the state.
No, but that reminds me of there was a Matt Worker cartoon from whatever it was 5, 6, 7 years ago now, talking about Scott Brown in Massachusetts, who famously won Kennedy's Senate seat for a brief period of time. And the cartoon was, you know, this guy in a cool leather jacket as a Republican saying, I'm not running with these guys over here. And it was the national Republicans all dressed as elephants on the corner of the room. And that was the joke about how do you get to this position of prominence as a Republican in an otherwise blue state. And that's kind of how saying, oh, well, I'm not a national Republican, I'm a Maryland or Massachusetts or whatever Republican, as though that actually meant anything. It's a meaningless communications move, but to some people it's effective enough to say, well, yeah, he's in the, you know, that large tent, but he's not part of that extreme. I'm sorry, but that party has gone all the way extreme now. There is no such thing as a moderate Republican anymore. It's become an oxymoron.
That's true now, but that's a recent phenomenon you're talking about.
It is.
But I want to throw one at you, Christian, because I know a Republican you would work for, I guess, tomorrow.
Who's that?
John McCain.
No, I would not.
You wouldn't work for John McCain?
No. Why would I work for John McCain? It's a very similar kind of mythology, right? It's I'm going to appear to be the calm person in the room. Look, Kasich adopted the exact same strategy when running for president, right? You listen to reporters who lived and worked in Ohio, not national reporters, but local reporters, and they were shocked that he had developed this sort of cool, calm, collected, on-stage persona when he entered this presidential race, because back in Ohio, he was the madman in the room screaming and throwing papers, and he was the hothead. But his team knew, no, Trump's the hothead in this room, and you can't outdo him, but if you can be the cool guy, you can come across as being moderate. That had nothing to do with his record on reproductive rights or economics or anything else. It had nothing to do with his actual track record. But he created that persona, and it worked for people who didn't know about his past.
You mentioned Casey, I understand it, but they got another one, the senator, he's trying to take that same path, the senator out of South Carolina, you know what I'm talking about. South Carolina senator, not Tim Scott, the other one.
Right? Lindsey Graham.
Okay,
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham is trying to take that same path in the Republican Party now somewhat.
Right, but I mean, that's what you see on Meet the Press versus what their voting record is, right?
Yeah, because it's all for
right. Okay, so one's public relations, one's actual. I mean, it's great. I'm a communications person. I respect that someone is doing their best, putting their best foot forward. But if they then go and turn around and vote against what they are portraying to the public, it's dishonest, right? Going back to your example of John McCain. John McCain is the hero. He's the good guy. He's, again, that calm voice in the room. Right, but when he is sick and he has cancer, he gets health care. Who pays for his health care? The taxpayer, right? Did he vote to keep the Affordable Care Act for Obamacare? Did he step in to say, hey, I should not get health care because I'm a U.S. senator? Everyone should get health care? No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
I'm thinking, what was that one he did go thumbs down on? I'm thinking it was health care.
No, it was not health care. I know what you mean, and yes, that was a good stunt. That was not health care.
Oh, yeah, yes, it was, because Trump elaborated on that this past week, say, I had health care done, I had ACA done.
Well, don't forget, there were several different votes on that, though. Right, several different versions of that. And what ultimately was the final, well, if you want to call it a victory for Trump, was not so much the direct attack on healthcare. It was in the tax reform bill. It was gutting the individual mandate, right? That's going to skyrocket the premiums, and so that's
skinny repeal.
Right. Right.
But that wasn't the actual
right
program. Yeah.
But had John McCain went thumbs up on it, it would have been holistic. Wouldn't have been anything skinny about it.
So we need universal single-payer health care right now.
Right, I was going to say, right now, you're talking about the lesser of two very big evils. I'm not sure, again, going back to your question, why would I work for John McCain? I can't.
I can understand.
I can't. And, I have a pretty long memory. I can also recall when he brought in, a completely unqualified person to be vice president of the United States, and he ran as a quote-unquote maverick, saying he would stand up to his party and he would do things his own way. And then who did he get? He got someone who was promoted to that position, who was endorsed by a right-wing blogger. And he had that person, Sarah Palin. Right.
I'm with you.
And had he won, she would have been one heartbeat away from the presidency.
That's true.
That paved the way for Trump.
It did.
That Sarah Palin.
in
Let me
part.
ask you a question then,
Yeah.
as a strategist, because this is a year of the woman when it comes to them running for different offices. Now, we got Susan Collins, I'm thinking, one senator, another Republican
Maine,
senator that I'm thinking upstate
Maine.
Maine. Susan Collins and another, what's the other one's name you know right off the top? Susan Collins. Anyway.
Are
you thinking Murkowski in Alaska?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Alaska.
Yeah.
And these are two women. And we saying that, and they're Republican women, that's the first part of them. But they are the distinguishing votes on Roe v. Wade if they support the Supreme Court nominee. And they are women who will be articulating or be voting on something that is paramount to women, and they might go the way of the other 48 males. In other words, so my question is, I want your perspective on as a strategist. When is the distinguishing difference made between genders, a male and a female, in the party if the two women who are Republican vote the same way as the other 48 male Republicans against women's themselves?
So are you asking why would a female Republican, why would a woman in the GOP vote?
Why would it be so important that she be voted in as a woman if she's going to hold the same line as the males?
Well, I think what the Republican Party of today has shown us is that you don't need to be necessarily a man to push wealthy white men's agenda, and you don't necessarily need to be white to push wealthy white men's agenda. The party really at this point stands for what suits people like the Koch brothers, what suits people who are all in for Donald Trump. So just because these two individuals are women does not mean that they are somehow altruistic or show any sign of solidarity with their fellow human beings. I mean, if you're all in for a party that is, and let's be clear about this, even before Trump, they were all in for dog whistle politics, right? They were all in for attacking people of color, especially black people, attacking women's rights, all of these things. And it was all very tongue-in-cheek for about 35 or so years. And then we said, with Trump, let's forget the dog whistle and just bring out the bullhorn, right? So this is a party that has a track record of harming other people whose interests do not align with wealthy people, wealthy white males, right? So if these individuals, women though they may be, they have to know that being in this party. They did not get elected to the U.S. Senate, and they did not join that party yesterday. So I don't know what's in their heart or what's in their minds. And if you're asking for sort of a bird's eye view, sort of a zoomed out view of why someone who is not a rich white man would go along with that agenda, I say if they join that party, they've already co-signed it.
I agree. Well, I want to ask you
Guys, we've got just a couple more minutes.
I want to ask you this question real quick, then we can let them do a close. Is that okay?
Go for it.
It's already known, from a strategist perspective, it's already known that Russia did some hacking, right?
Putting it lightly.
That's a given. Now I ask you a question.
Yeah.
It's already known that Trump lost the popular vote by 2,700,000. And already known that the actual popular vote that turned over the electoral votes to him is 70,000. 12,000 from Wisconsin, Milwaukee, where black people live, 42,000 from Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, where black people live, and I think 21,000 from Michigan. Detroit, where black people live. Right. Now, if Russian, we already know they ran a tweet and a Facebook campaign insurgency. And I know that every black person I see every day got their head in their phone. It's their baby sister and brother. How difficult would it have been to, and I know Russia ran their infiltration against black people specifically. How difficult would it have been to have 12,000 black people don't show up in Milwaukee, 42,000 don't show up in Philadelphia, and 21,000 don't show up in Detroit. That ain't hard.
Well, so really what you're asking is more of a cybersecurity than a political question, but from what I understand, from what I've gathered, what I've read, et cetera, and so forth, For one thing, I don't think that the Russians did this completely on their own.
I'm scared to talk about the Russians right now.
Well, I'll say this much.
They have an inside guy somewhere.
I do not think that they knew a precinct by precinct geography of the Rust Belt, right? There had to be American strategists feeding that information to them. So with Facebook, and not as much with Twitter and other platforms, but you can really target your message, your ad campaign, whether it's for sneakers or a political candidate, it doesn't matter, to a very small area. You can narrow it down by zip code, by geographical radius, by different demographic targets, right? Russians, sure, they could say, well, Michigan's a northern state and Alabama's a southern state, but I don't think that they had this kind of intel about political and cultural and social economic issues on a precinct by precinct level. There had to have been collaboration.
And I concur with you. I don't think they had it on a precinct by precinct level, but I do think they had it on an urban level.
They did, but let's also, I mean, it was even bigger than that. So it's been shown now that they would target something that's supposed to be representative of Black Lives Matter, and then say that this group here will show up for the protest, and then tell a bunch of skinheads show up for the protest at the same place and same day. I mean, they were intentionally pitting different groups against each other. That's true. But what I'm saying is, to your earlier question, when it comes down to Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. There was the precision with which they hit those states was too great to have it been a solo operation. And I'll do you one better. It's impossible for them to have caused these fissures in our society, right? There was already political polarization. There were already contentious issues, right? So when you have the Republican Party that's doing things in these states already, like pushing voter ID laws and voter suppression tactics, especially in Wisconsin and other states, it makes it all too easy for this sort of thing to happen. Because if you already have voter ID and other restrictive laws coming in, other measures like closing polling places last minute, things of that nature, it makes the Russians' job almost unnecessary, because you're already suppressing the votes of low income and people of color without any external help. The rest is just gravy.
Guys, I just want to thank you so much for joining us. We would love to continue this conversation at some point in the near future. Things are just changing so fast, and I wonder how we can keep track of it, but we just need to represent. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for asking.
We'll take a break.
Thank you.
Miss Bonnie, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome back to City Radio. My name is Molly Hopes, here with my co-host Timothy Mercer. Our guest now is Christina M. Johnson. She is the author of a book series, actually, Faith That Conquers. And we're going to talk with her about that, about her projects in publishing. And if you guys don't mind, I'm going to read an excerpt from this book that I just picked out. I'm sorry, forgive me in advance.
It's okay.
That's right.
I did everything I was bold enough and bad enough to do. I was arrogant, angry, and unforgiving. I was filled with bitterness, fear, worry, and hopelessness and faithlessness weren't far behind. I was so negatively charged and out of harmony with the people, places, and things in my environment, and my reality could only reflect the negative and unrighteous vibrations that my thoughts and ideas produced. That's sort of the opposite of what your book is about in some ways. What's the book about?
Well, actually, that is part of what the book is about. Conquers Cash is the name of the series, and it is a self-help transformation series. It includes metacognitive research. That just means thinking about your own thinking and identifying how your thinking affects your life. So the Conquers Cash series includes 4 books. The first book is Faith That Conquers, and that's the main one that we'll probably talk about today. But it also includes book 2, Filter Your Faith, book 3, Faith to Forgive, and book 4, Faith to Focus, focus on conquering until successful. So in Faith That Conquers, it all starts with where I was. And I was in a place that was low. I was in a place that did not allow me to manifest the positivity and the righteousness that is actually divinely my right. So it actually starts with that low point, and then finally getting past that low point and seeing who I truly am and identifying who I am as far as the Most High Creator deemed me to be. After realizing that, then trying to figure out how do I get up off of the floor, out of the fetal position crying, and then stand up and get back on my feet and walk in my righteousness and walk in the life and in the mind where I'm actually manifesting my highest self.
I'm really curious what a metacognitive exercise is.
Okay. Metacognitive just simply means meta, some sort of change. Cognitive is just the way that you think. So it's thinking about your own thinking, identifying the thoughts that don't fit in with what you actually want to accomplish and what you want to live out, and then figuring out how you can get to the point where you're no longer lamenting or tormented by those thoughts and living it, to the place where you're actually living your dreams, so to speak. Whatever it is that you think of would be your ideal life, whatever it is that you would think of would be the best thing for your family and your community, like you just finished talking about. What is that ideal space that you actually want to exist in for yourself and your family? And then that's what we talk about in the book, how to get there. So the metacognitive exercises are based on research that I actually did. My science background in biology and chemistry, I actually did research for Johns Hopkins University, University of Maryland. I was a Fogarty Fellow, a Howard Hughes Fellow. I was paid to do research in Petah Tikva, Israel, for the Rabin Medical Center, and I was doing all this research for everyone else, and I was still living paycheck to paycheck and unhappy. So my husband and I decided to use all of that information and use his entrepreneurial skills and come up with something that would get us to the place where we truly wanted to be. Because you look around and a lot of people you see them in existence, but they really aren't happy. They really aren't full of joy and expressing the life that they want to live. They go to sleep unhappy, they wake up unhappy, everything is, just wrong in their life. And we actually implement those exercises so that you can get from that place to a place where you see everything for your good, where you see that you are fearfully and wonderfully created, where you see that you are more than a conqueror and that you can overcome these situations. So a metacognitive exercise would be, one simple one would be looking into the mirror and using positive affirmations to say, I am, and then whatever follows that you are, because you speak those things into existence. You speak those things that are not as though they are, so that you will become it. So I am bold, I am beautiful. Even if you don't believe it in that second, you are teaching your subconscious mind to believe it. And just like your heart beats without you having to say heartbeat, that's what you're going to be training your mind to do with the metacognitive exercises. And in the book, there are tons of them, but also this book comes with a website that has other activities, resources, and bonuses that you can listen to, that you can view, and that you can continue to do over and over again, so that it's a habit and you don't even have to think about it.
Before we go any further, can you tell everybody how to get it, like, as soon as possible?
Oh, yes, definitely. Well, you can go to Amazon.com and look up Faith That Conquers. You can go to the Power Plant here in Baltimore. They are doing an awesome thing for Testimony Publishers LLC, my publishing company, my husband's publishing company, and they are carrying the book. So they want to see how it does, so you can go there and pick it up. Also, I was going to ask your permission if I could do something for your viewers. I will gift them the book if they email me at cmjohnson@faiththatconquers.com, and in the subject line put free book. I will gift them the book. All they do is pay shipping and handling, and they can have the book. Maybe the first 50 people.
Can you beat that right now?
But definitely, we want to get this book into as many people's hands as possible, especially with everything that went on, like in Chicago, in Baltimore. You still have communities that are recovering from the riots still to this day. So we are in a place mentally where we haven't been able to see past the present. Many of us have been in that place where we just wake up and we're habitually going through our days. We are not actually mapping out and planning out a strategic plan with tactics to get to that place where we can enjoy our life. We can actually walk into our home, even though we live on 25th Street, in a place where we don't really like at the particular moment, and see that this is not going to be our final destination, that what we dream of in our minds we can achieve, we can accomplish, but you do need the steps, and sometimes people need help. So that's what this book is all about. The series is focusing on faith. It's focusing on filtering your thoughts, identifying what those thoughts are. A lot of people don't want to think about what the negative thoughts are. You just want to ignore them, but sometimes you can't ignore them. You have to acknowledge it, see the problem for what it is, and then deal with it by removing it and replacing it with something that is positive and much more conducive to your lifestyle. We also work on forgiving. Forgiving is huge because a lot of people carry unforgiveness, and whatever you carry in your mind, it manifests in your body. So unforgiveness usually manifests itself in your liver area, in your stomach area. You can't stomach certain things, indigestion problems, high blood pressure. So all of these things are affected because you haven't forgiven yourself for something you did 20 years ago, and you aren't even the same person. You would never do it again, but we are still living in that place. And then finally, focus is actually an acronym. The last book, focus on conquering until successful. Don't focus on if you made a mistake, because sometimes you slip. Don't focus on if you didn't get the positive affirmation correct. Don't focus on what happened bad just 15 minutes ago. Keep focusing on the thing you want until you get it.
Real quick question, Ms. Johnson.
Go for it. I got questions. How long is this going to take?
Oh my goodness, it's instantaneously, believe it or not. Believe it or not, it's instantaneously. And the reason I say that is because, if I can say it real quickly, the synapses in your brain are connected by neurons. So those are the nerve cells in your brain, okay? Neurons. And those neurons actually go all over your body and send messages to every single part of your body. So synapses was once thought to not be able to change. Your brain can change. Once you do this, once you're this way, that's the way that you're going to be forever. But with research, technological improvements, we found that your brain can change.
Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, awesome. With neuroplasticity, see, you know more than you're letting on. But with neuroplasticity, we know now that the brain changes and that you don't have to keep the same mental processes that you once used before. So you have to train, just like you exercise your body when you want muscles, you have to exercise your brain. And that's with visualization techniques, seeing what you want, actually experiencing the emotion of actually driving in that car that you want, having that family relationship that is fulfilling to you, maybe the bank account that you want that's filled with millions of dollars, actually emotionally feeling it. And then when you connect your thought with the emotion, the subconscious comes right into play. And for example, if you've noticed, if you get up in the morning, maybe you stamp your toe on a dresser and you're like, oh man, this day is starting off horribly. Right there, you've actually started your own chain reaction. Even if that happens, you can still stop it and immediately change your thought. Oh, that's nothing. That was just a reminder for me to stay on my toes, or, you know, change it around. Find that positive in it and truly believe that everything that happens is for your good, even if it was meant for your harm. Changing that thought process, turning everything on its head so that it will no longer affect you. Conquer your mind on earth as it is in heaven. If your mind is heaven and your body is earth, then you want to have in your mind in heaven the highest thought process, the most righteous thing that you can have, and have it manifest in your body. That's one of the ways that a lot of doctors, over 90% of doctors, believe that the spiritual aspect is so key in healing of their patients. And why is that? That's because their mind has determined, I am not going to be sick forever. Even if they're believing it, somewhere within their mind, then the synapses are connecting and saying that healing is a possibility. And healing is not only possible physically, but it's possible emotionally. When people go through trauma that messes with them psychologically, as far as rapes and childhood molestations, they can overcome that with help. That may take time to manifest physically, but it's also instantaneous once you identify that this is going to change. I have decided I am going to change it. I'm not going to blame anyone else. I'm not going to complain about it. I am going to change it. That's instantaneously. That's in an instant it changes, and then the physical manifests itself along the way.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I want to ask you a quick question, Ms. Johnson. Every day I ride down the streets in Baltimore City in my community, I can look through the windshield, look out the windows, and I can see a large mental health problem. Mm-hmm. You know, my question to you is, if you had one chapter in this book here, this is the first one, am I correct?
Yes, it is. That
you had to say to, because you said it's instantaneously. Mm-hmm. If you had one chapter in this book, and I say that also to say that I know we don't read too much either, so you know it's not like we'll start at page 1 and read through. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes, right? Okay, I hear you. They're going to read Faith That Conquers, though. We're keeping it positive. I'm spinning it around.
But if they had one chapter or one thing in here that would address them profoundly, to have them move forward, go forward or backwards in the book, along the lines of something that would just hit them on the head and say, this here give you a better position to think and problem solve. Okay. The cognitive perspective you're talking about.
Okay, I know you asked for one thing, but what came to my mind were two at the same time.
That's fair.
So the first thing is, this book is so different than many self-help transformation books. One, it's one of the first self-help transformation books that is trademarked. Conqueror's Cash is a trademark because of the metacognitive pedagogy, the revelations that lead to the exercises that are in it. So that's one. The second thing that I'm thinking about would jump out would be defining what faith is and how to get it. And that's not in a chapter, basically. It's in day 1. Okay. So this book is broken down into just 7 days. It's an easy read. It's a quick read. So and when I say metacognitive, it's also micro-learning style. So it's not a huge chunk of something scientific just thrown at you. It's small pieces, small bits that you can easily digest. So the first day is, I would say, one of the most important days, and it's in a devotional style. So you just read a little bit. Mm-hmm. It does have a scripture. It does have some African proverbs.
Okay.
So you are going to relate it culturally and spiritually, not necessarily from a Christian perspective, not necessarily from a religious perspective, because I've taken religion out so that the people that need to read it won't see, oh, I have to be a Muslim, I have to be a Christian, or I have to be an atheist or agnostic. No, religion is not in it because I don't want to confine you to a particular thing. This book is about freeing you to understand the thought process and the science that the Creator gave us. It's also the spiritual aspect that we're already connected to, God in us. So we access that by first identifying what faith is. And when you identify what faith is, you know that you already have faith. You just need to redirect it. You have faith, not you per se, but many of us have faith that that Tylenol is going to work when we take it for our headache. But we've already been given the power within to get rid of the headache. All we have to do is stop, breathe, lower our heart rate, maybe close our eyes and do different things within ourselves. The God in me will express itself in true health and happiness. That is our divine right. That is what we are supposed to be doing and living out. And we've already been given that card to say, here's your card. That's for you. You can do it. It's already within us, but we do so many things to kind of get us out of that mode. But identifying what faith is and then knowing how to get that would be the most important thing, because that's the foundation of everything that this series is built on.
No specific philosophy, no specific ethnicity. It's across the board when it comes to who this ideology applies to. From an ethnic perspective.
Oh, from an ethnic perspective, I wouldn't say that it's specific to any ethnicity.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
broad.
Right.
It's universal.
I would say general.
General?
Yep, it's just general. What this book and what the series does is identify what the wrong thoughts are, no matter your age, your gender, your race, your religion, and then fix the thought so that you can then see it in your mind, emotionally feel it, and then physically express it. You can be a Muslim, a Christian, black or white, and you can have thoughts about pornography. That's across the board. You can have thoughts about wanting to punch someone in the face every time they say something to you. You can have thoughts about telling yourself when you look in the mirror that you're ugly, that you're worthless, that what happened to you as a child you should be ashamed of, and you shouldn't be loved. You shouldn't feel a certain way about yourself. So that is across the board. Once you fix those thoughts, I'm not handsome, I'm not loving, I can't be loved, I'm undeserving, I'm unworthy, the Lord doesn't love me, Allah doesn't care for me. Whatever those thoughts are, you identify them and you fix them. Once we fix them, then we'll be able to fix the stuff with the city, we'll be able to fix the things with our families. Imagine what it would be like to wake up every morning. You're not necessarily in the mansion you want, you don't necessarily have the bank account, but to absolutely love your life.
Let's take Tim as just a brief case study.
Okay.
I was going to throw myself out there too. I was going to throw myself out there also. Go ahead, Molly.
Okay.
So, what's the one after? Or yeah, what? Tim, you gotta keep it
I want to give you this one.
Okay.
My wife always got a honey-do list. I get a list like this here every other week. You know, and towards that end, I look at her sometimes, and after I done did half of it, or 2/3 of it, I say, I can't win, and she get perfectly upset. Don't say that. Stop saying that. That you can't win. You speak it into into existence. But I use that terminology a lot with her,
Right.
and she'd be adamantly about stop saying that. You know.
When a man findeth a wife, he findeth a good thing, and you have a wonderful wife.
I concur.
First, she's constantly reminding you. Let me ask you to look at it this way. Your wife gives you that list. Imagine what your wife is thinking when she gives you that list. Oh, I'm going to put this on that. Oh, I know he can do that. Oh, that's my man. He's strong. He can do this. Oh, he's going around that way. I know he'll figure out a way to get me that. Oh, yeah, and he knows this is my favorite. I'm going to put this down. Oh, okay, yeah, he can do that. Oh, I'll just keep a couple things off. But this is actually my short list I'm giving him. She gives you the list, and knows you can accomplish it. Imagine what she sees in you. So when you say, I can't win, or I can't, what those things that you say, she gets upset because she knows that that is not the man she married, and she wants you to see it.
But I guess I'm looking for gratification, having made some kind of accomplishment.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what I tell her sometimes. I'm saying it's always another list. It's never thank you. Here's another list. This is another list.
Right. And I believe that the Creator does that with us, and as wives. And women in general, with our fathers, our brothers, men that we love, we ask a lot of them because who else are we going to ask? We want to go to the men that we love to provide for us, to protect us, to actually teach us, be our priest, be our prophets, speak into us, get us everything we need so we don't have to worry. Believe it or not many women will say, especially strong black women will say, oh, I can, get money on my own, I can do my own. But we want to be taken care of, period. We want our man to take care of us and treat us like the queens or the princesses that we are, because he's a king. He's not going to treat me any less than a queen. He's a prince in the making, and he's not going to treat me any less than a princess. Whatever that, I guess, role is that you would give yourself. But that's what she sees in you. She sees that positive, that strong man who can do everything on that list. And maybe sometimes there's some things that she gets disappointed with, but when you turn those thoughts around, even in her disappointment, you can still come out positive and add to the positivity of the environment and the atmosphere, and not even succumb to some of the negativity that you may be feeling.
Molly threw me under the bus. I'm going to Molly got 2 twins. And I learned things about Molly every week, every other week. And a couple of weeks ago, I didn't ever know that her grandfather was a doctor. Am I correct when I say that? But Molly got 2 twins, a girl and a boy. And she said to me one day, Aubrey, the girl is Aubrey, Aubrey's going to be a doctor. And Aubrey's smart as a son. She's very smart. But she didn't say Solomon was going to be a doctor. Go ahead.
Congratulations.
Audrey
first.
will be a doctor.
Solomon got.
Thanks.
What about Solomon?
So it's Audrey, and yeah, I don't know.
And that's a good thing, because
I'll tell you where it came from. Audrey's grandparents, Audrey and Solomon's grandparents, sent them costumes for Halloween. Audrey got a doctor's costume. Solomon got a cowboy's costume. Do I think that Solomon's going to be a cowboy? Probably.
Got a good shot at it.
But, yeah, no, I totally believe in this. I doubt my own ability to take that first step and do the faith thing, because I've had a difficult time with it.
Okay.
But it used to be there for me. I still believe that it's there for me, and I'm going to do this.
You made a statement the show before last, Molly. You said sometimes you look back and you said, sometimes I don't think I took advantage of all the things I should have took advantage of, because you say my mama got a master's degree, my so got a master's degree, my grandfather a doctor. You said, when I look at it, I think I should be further. Remember that statement you made a few weeks ago?
No, I wish they taught this kind of thing in schools. Seriously. Yeah. I mean,
I can actually see. I can actually see in your eyes that you are very successful. You put a lot on yourself, and you want to achieve a lot. You've already done so much. You could actually stop right now, this day, and not do another thing and still be a success. When you think of that, you have to find something within yourself that says, what is going to be enough for me? Because like myself, I was so hard on myself. I was an A student. I was a 400-meter track and field champion in high school here in Baltimore City. I went on to college to be a collegiate track and field champion. After that, schools were giving me money to do research because I was an honors student, and all of these accomplishments, I never really failed at anything. So when something came and it was time to really have faith, I was no longer going on just the fumes of who I was, because life was easy for me. I didn't have to study. I had a photographic mind. I don't know if necessarily after, you know, being a family woman and all these years if it's still there, but you know, it did kind of help with the book. But you know, I had a photographic memory all through school. I didn't even have to study. It came to me easy. But when it was time for me to do the hard stuff, like choosing my husband over myself because we're married, choosing my children, choosing to grow instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to be selfish, this is all for me. Those things were difficult for me at one point in time. Some of the other things that were difficult for me was seeing my family struggle and have to go through the hardships, not just from my childhood, but after marriage. You're saying that I'm going to have to struggle and still live paycheck to paycheck? Lord, I thought you said that if I married this man, I would be fine, that he was the one for me. I thought that you said if I had children and I did what you said, that that would be good. I thought if I stayed home and homeschooled and did all of these things, but that's not what it's about. You don't have to do anything else. You do not have to do anything else to receive the divine right that you were born with. We have it in us. It's already there. So take that pressure off of yourself. You don't have to do anything else. You're beautiful. You are strong. All of these things will manifest in time. You don't have to push it. You don't have to pry. And you can just take it one day at a time. Think it in your mind and visualize it. Feel it, how you're going to feel when you get to that point, and then your subconscious will start taking steps to reaching those goals, and you won't have to do anything. I'm telling you, things will start falling into place. I know many of you have had surprise checks in the mail. Many of you have had phone calls from a friend that you were just thinking of. All of that is energy. Our thoughts are nothing but energy. It may be hard to believe that we are actually just atoms moving at a very, very fast pace. This table may look solid, this book may look solid, but it is not. Everything is a perspective, and our reality will shape itself once our thoughts get into alignment with what our emotions are. And then when we continue to do the exercises and keep thinking those thoughts, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible.
I believe you.
And belief is acceptance. Belief is acceptance, but one thing that a lot of people have found to be difficult is continuing in the process. And that's one thing that I wanted to accomplish with the book, to give you something that was over and over and over again. You'll see in the series some of the same things in book 1 are in book 2. Some of the same things that are in book 2 are in book 3 and book 4, and so on and so forth, because it has to be a habit. You can't just do it one time and think that's it. A lot of scientists have said that it takes 21 days to form a new habit. Some said 21 times 3, or whatever they say it is. But I don't know the exact time that it takes to create a habit. But what I do know, all of them have decided that it takes time doing the same things over and over again. So that's what this series is about. It's about identifying those thoughts, filtering the bad, the negative, the unrighteous, forgiving yourself for having the thoughts, being in the situations that you were in, and then focusing on replacing those thoughts with what you want. And you do it over and over again. Different ways, different exercises for each book, but you'll see it's the same principle. You'll say, I did this again, but this exercise looks different. No, it's the principle that has to continue to be ingrained so that you can be successful. And that's one thing that we do with the Easy Peasy Authorpreneur program. That's for our publishing company, Testimony Publishers LLC. First, everyone wants to write a book. But you don't want to start a self-help transformation book and you are still grieving. Writing can be cathartic and you can help yourself through the process, but if you truly want to help the people that are going to read your book, you want to first identify some of those things that are truly upsetting you. Get to the root, and if you get to the root, get it out. That's going to be even more helpful for the people that are reading. So that's what we do. We start with the Conqueror's Cash series. We get the thoughts identified. We filter those thoughts. We forgive ourselves. We focus on what we want, get the mindset portion correct, and then we start outlining how you're going to write your book, what you're going to write about. And then we go through the publishing process, and then hopefully we get you to the point where you are profitable and you can earn passive income while you are not there. That's what we all want. We really don't want to have to be there working to do a lot of the arduous things that we do in our lives. So that's what we do with the Easy Peasy Authorpreneur program.
the Conqueror's CACHE? Could you elaborate on that?
Okay, Conqueror's Cash. Cash is basically a stash. It's a stash of tools. It could be food, anything that you keep.
I get you as
a reserve.
Like as a reserve.
Exactly.
Storehouse.
A store, exactly. So conquerors would be anything in your stash that you use to conquer. You can conquer the enemies in your thought. You can conquer the enemies in your environment. Anything you use to conquer. So for these, they would the Conqueror's Cash would be positive affirmations, visualizations, repetitive exercise, metacognitive exercises. Like I said, some of the exercises, you're standing in the mirror, you're talking to yourself. You ever see the football players, they get in the huddle and they, yeah, man, yeah, you're bad. And the boxers, I'm the baddest, I'm the greatest. They're talking to themselves. And that's what we need to do with just regular day things. A lot of the mental health issues that you see are people accepting the negative over the positive. And it doesn't have to be that way. Are bad things going to happen? Yes. Are you going to get every single thing you want? Maybe not, but what if? What if you really got every single thing you wanted?
We just want to thank you so much for sharing everything that you did and for writing this book.
And I want you to elaborate again on where it could be.
We could pick it up. Okay.
Pick it up in the website they can go to for the.
For the free book, you would email me, right. cmjohnson@faiththatconquers.com with the subject line free book, and I will get the link to you so that you can order the book. I've already paid for the books. You just do shipping and handling. Also, you can go to amazon.com, barnesandnobles.com, most any online retailer, or you can go right here in the power plant and pick up a book in person. And the more people that go in person, they'll probably give me my own shelf. So you can do that too. The book is also in Barnes and Nobles in Texas, Iowa, and California.
Faith That Conquers, Christina M. Johnson.
Very quickly, I want you viewers and your listeners to touch bases with this Mrs. Johnson and get a hold of this book. Why is she especially giving it to you on complimentary understanding? But most of all, I want you to get a hold of this book so you can uplift yourselves and give yourself another tool to make yourself more cognitively involved with your own self-esteem.
Guys, thanks for joining us at RadioOnFire Studios on 25th Street. This is Molly Hoops, Timothy Mercer. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Sorry that took
so
long.
Fun. Thank you so much. No.